So let's get to the watch party.
Yeah.
The important part.
Cowboy Bebop.
Yep.
Marty's
Cowboy
been waiting
Bebop.
the whole time. He's like, I'm ready.
Just
Cowboy
go.
Bebop. Let's talk.
I've been my hand's been shaking.
Right,
God, I love
so-
the show so much. Everyone's seen it, right?
Well, I've only seen the first 2 episodes.
Yeah,
I'm trying
that's
to
what-
stay on rails
Whoa.
with
Yeah,
the anime
so-
watch party.
Yeah, this anime watch party, we're talking about the first 2 episodes.
Okay,
So that was the assignment.
That's fine.
Everyone just
No
watched the first 2.
spoilers, Marty.
spoilers.
So we watched Asteroid Blues and Stray Dog Strut, which are both fantastic and have completely different tones.
Yep.
Yeah, completely different
Yeah.
tones,
What
and
is
I love
happening?
the sly pop culture references, especially in the second episode,
Yeah.
where I'm like, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it does. The show. I hadn't seen the show in a couple of years, and I forgot that it starts off on that very strange flashback slash.
Right,
flash
that
forward.
kind of
Yeah, I mean,
just-
you think it's a flashback, you don't know what it is.
What it
but
is
that
or
black
where.
and white moment with Spike in the rain and jazz music and the cigarettes and the dead roses and the gunfight. You're like, what the hell? So you think the show is going to be this, and then it's just like hard cut to that opening, which in my opinion is the
So
greatest opening in the history of television.
It's
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of our readers actually found his sheet music for jazz, Chris Daniel. You have a really long name, so I'm just gonna say Chris Daniel. On Twitter,
Yeah.
said he found his own old sheet music for his sax.
Yeah.
So it's like awesome that he has sax
That's so
part.
cool.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
I actually played it in college.
Really?
Yeah, so we played Tank in college,
Ah,
which is
that's
like
the best.
awesome. We played it for like a halftime show.
Nice.
Marching
Cool.
band. Yeah,
Yeah.
so easily one of the greatest anime openings there is.
Oh,
So
totally.
good.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, just in that moment, like sets like that's the real tone of the show. I guess is that
Right.
opening sets it, or the actual the opening, the credits, and it does this. I mean, it just from the score, sort of like that twangy blues that permeates the entire show, to Spike and Jet's relationship, which is really strange, which obviously grows throughout the series. But I like the fact that it introduces the crew of the Bebop very slowly. I mean, without going too far in, they recruit a handful of other strange characters.
Which
to
you
their
see in like
family.
the opening.
Yeah, you
I
see it in
mean,
the opening
anime openings
credit,
are-
but you
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
see them in the first 2 episodes.
No.
You've got 2 guys and like a dog at the end. And
Yeah,
you're like,
yeah.
all right,
That
that's the
episode
entire
too.
show.
Fine.
Sorry.
Right. It's like, okay, cool, fine.
Yeah.
So cute.
Yeah, super cute. But yeah, like I mentioned earlier, I love that weird like juxtaposition and anachronism between sort of the futuristic majesty of space and wormholes and warp drives, and then just when you get down to like when they go to the first episode takes place in Tijuana.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you get down there and it's just like, oh man, Tijuana, like it's just as awful as it is now. Like all these cities are just as
Even
awful
the
as they
future,
are now.
it's grim.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And like the bars are super sad and everything. And it's just I love that like this show could take place right now if it weren't for the whole space travel thing. I don't know, and it just seems really timeless to me. Like it's always going to have that sense of cool in the same way that like Miles Davis is always going to have a sense of cool to him. Like no matter what fads come in and out, like this thing is sort of set in stone. I don't know
Yeah.
what it is.
I would say for me, when I was watching the first 2 episodes, so I'm going to incur a lot of wrath for this. So at the time when it was current, I had a bunch of friends tell me I should watch it. And then I don't remember the timing of this, but like Trigun was like popular around the same time. I always tended to mix those 2 up because
Yeah.
like I would watch a couple of each and then I would get really confused, like what was what.
They're both sort
So-
of westerns, you know.
So going back and just like very clearly, consciously watching these first 2 episodes and being like, okay, I'll like fix this properly in my memory. I was so struck by how 90s anime felt. Like it was almost like, oh, I'm coming home, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
because the style of animation like changes in Japan over time, right? So like it has very much that 90s look. It's not quite as colorful as like what we're watching now.
Yeah.
It doesn't have that kind of. Because I feel like when I'm watching like something like Arslan or even looking at something like Plastic Memories, it's very pretty. You know, it's like brighter colors. Like the characters have like a more, I don't know, like kind of Bishonen kind of look.
Yeah.
Whereas this, I was like, oh, it's like coming home. But at the same time, like it's just so well paced.
Yeah.
It's the dialogue is so tight. Like the characterization is done so well. Like it has this very timeless quality. Like it's like going back and watching movies from like the 1950s, like the golden age of Hollywood kind of
Yeah,
thing, where
yeah.
it doesn't matter that it's from a different time and different place with different inflections and, you know, vocabulary. There's something very universal about
yeah,
it.
yeah.
The art direction is absolutely stunning in it. I mean, I love the different angles, especially during fight scenes. You get
Oh,
sort of
yeah.
that like that
Right.
up, you know, the camera's going up, or
Yeah.
it's just at different positions and everything. And I wanted something adult and cool. I was talking about that the first Anime Club episode. I was like, I want something that's not in high school. I don't want something that's in middle
Yeah,
school.
yeah.
Boy, did I get that with Cowboy Bebop. I just
Yeah.
love its
so much about adults, and it's so grounded in reality. So yeah, it has space travel, but it's something about it is very adult and very mature, and I love that. And I love all the sly pop culture references. So like the second episode is basically a parody of Game of Death with Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
So I haven't seen the entire movie. I've only seen a couple of fight scenes from it, but it's a whole thing with like Bruce Lee and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I can never say his name. And it's awesome. And so to have that kind of flashback, and as a kid or a younger person, I wouldn't have understood that reference. But as an adult, there's all these wonderful pop culture references that are super hip, but they're not banging it over your head. They're just sliding it in there in a really clever way, which I like.
And it marries the idea of like fun and comedic anime with like, I mean, the end of the first episode is like super tragic. Like he's following them into space, and like the girl blows her boyfriend's brains out, and then they just get torn apart by the cops.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like the biggest thing is like, you have the tone setting like in the beginning when you have the dark noir kind of jazzy theme when it's like big shootout.
Yeah.
And then the intro theme, it breaks that up. And then you have the other kind of like comedic, like he's trying to find their first bounty, like you said. It's like very tragic. And then the next episode is just completely silly.
Oh, totally.
Like episode 2 is just like, just so fun. Like, oh, yeah, we're chasing after this dog.
They're chasing down a little Welsh corgi everywhere, and you're like, I don't know where this is going, but I'm completely on board with this.
So it introduces Big Shot, where it's like the super awkward host trying to be like old timey cowboys and saying shucks howdy.
It's really good.
Yeah,
I don't know. Like I've seen most of the series before. I actually started watching it back in December. I got through most of the way and decided to take a break because I had to get some other job stuff done. But overall, Bebop, just like even it shows in these first 2 episodes, just handles its tones very well. And sets them and kind of paces your emotions as well. Like obviously the first one's like very hard hitting and like whoa, but then the second one kind of like gives you a break. So it is nice.
And it does a really good job of introducing you to these characters and teaching you about the characters slowly. Like you know a lot about Spike right now, and you learn more about Jet soon, and then when they meet Faye and Ed, is that the yeah.
Spoilers.
There's a character named Faye and Ed. That's not super spoilers.
So you've seen it. You saw them in the lineup.
Yeah, exactly. They're in the opening credits. And then I don't know. The show, it just like rewatching these 2 episodes reminded me of why I fell in love with it.
You know what I really like about the characters too is that Spike's not incompetent per se. He just seems very luckless. Things just do not work out for him. But he's not like bumbling. He's smart and he's cool, but he's not gonna win every time. And in fact, so far he can't win for losing basically. So that's what I like about that is that they're losers, but not because they're incompetent or bumbling. It's just like
they can't catch a break.
It's not even just that. I think they do just a great, like I was saying, the characterization is just so good because they make them very relatable, right? Because you start that first episode and like Spike is like going through like martial arts like practice patterns, right? Like he's like super badass, really. Like
they established that
they established that, right? But at the same time, they basically juxtapose that with like the character's motivation, which is to eat. It's like the most basic human thing ever. And like they're all that they're doing boils down to I need money so I can eat and pay for gas.
They don't want to be rich. They just literally want to be able to like live.
It's like Lone Star.
It's super relatable. Super relatable, and I think that's a great thread that actually ties these episodes together too, right? So even though you have this juxtaposition of like really hard hitting first episode with like chasing a dog in the second episode, the motivation is still the same. So it doesn't feel like this jarring jump from one to the other.
And it does, which we'll see later on. It handles really well the balancing act between self-contained single episode stories as well as furthering a sort of larger meta narrative. I guess if I had one complaint with the show is that its larger meta narrative never gets super well resolved.
Right. There's actually a comment that says Gavin Zhu, I'm not too sure, at Meth Cookie, so whatever, on Twitter, said he asked why do we like it? He said after watching 7 of 26 episodes, it only seems mediocre. And he says I would assume the plot picks up after, and it's the meta narrative. It's just.
It does. I mean, like that's not, if that's super what you're into and what you want from the show, you might not get it.
Right.
It's just one of those things you sort of have to enjoy. It's more about the journey, not the destination. As trite as that
sounds like it's you enjoy the environment, enjoy the characters.
Totally.
Like that's what you should watch for.
Absolutely. Right. And then there is a movie at the end, which I'm sure you'll talk about someday.
Indeed.